Welcome to Fast Pace, the new growth, leadership and management podcast featuring Josh Phegan and Dean Mackie. We wanted to peel back the layers on what happens in the world of fast-paced real estate agencies, from new leadership models to the management challenges we all face each day. This is about a new era in the estate agency sector. Rapid changes to business models, service lines, remuneration and growth present the greatest opportunities that we've ever seen. Sit back, get inspired, grow your skills and reimagine what's possible with Fast Pace. Every Friday, wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Josh Phegan Digital.
One of the most critical skills for any business leader is to make sure that their people are clearly out in front of what's actually happening in the market. We know that a number of things like government incentives and changes that happen inside of the market cycle can really impact what a sales agent actually does and how you convince both a buyer and a seller to bring it together. Dean, one of the great challenges for any business leader is to make sure that their people are fully informed about what's actually happening at any one key point in time. And we know without a doubt that there's a number of things that agents could be looking at. For example, in New South Wales, there's been some changes that have been made in relation to stamp duty, and particularly with first home buyers, that if they're buying a property up to 1.5 million, they can elect not to pay the stamp duty and to instead pay broad-based land tax. Also, in the federal budget a little while back, there was a conversation about over 55s actually being in a position that they could actually sell a principal place of residence, take $300,000, put it into superannuation and not have to pay tax on that. Dean, how important, and particularly when a market gets tough, is it for leaders to make sure that people are fully aware about things like government incentives and programs that are out there so they can do more targeted marketing to the right groups, but also to inspire both buyers and sellers to do transactions to make sure they're getting the momentum on the inside of their business?
Josh, without doubt, it's really important. Look, I think there's a lot of people who think that real estate's a part-time job, and you can just sort of skate along by the seat of your pants and sort of roll in and have a loose conversation and everything's going to be okay. Look, people expect you to be an expert and a professional at what you do. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's about how do you add value in those moments that matter and identifying and being curious enough with your questioning around what is it somebody's needs are, what are going to be the trigger points to help them move along on the journey, and being an expert. It's like, if you're going out playing golf, and I'm not a golfer, but sort of understand the analogy. If I'm rolling along playing golf, and the difference between me pulling out a 7-iron or a sand wedge, it's a completely different club to pull out in that moment to play that shot. This is exactly the same thing. It's like knowing what is the audience that you need, what help do they need, and how are you going to then help them shift along and keep them moving to make a decision to buy or sell or do something in real estate. And it could be just those little things that in your level of expertise that actually makes the difference to them in that moment. So for me, if you're a full-time professional athlete, you're on your game, you know every single nuance, you're prepared, you got all your stuff done, you've done your homework. As a real estate agent, it's the same thing. If you want to be top of your game, you need to be all over this stuff.
So, Dean, we know that great relationship leads to a better fee. So that literally gives you pricing power because customers go, hey, you know what you're talking about and I'd love you to look after my property if you could sell it into the future. And it's about how do you go to provide that insight or that perspective. Now, if you took your car into a service and they said, oh, hey, Dean, just so you know, your car's actually in for a recall because of XYZ. We're just going to get that done for you during the course of your service. Would that be okay? The recall came out yesterday. You think, oh, wow, that's good product knowledge. They know what they're doing. There's nothing worse than the recall having come out and then 3 weeks later the dealership rings you and goes, oh, Dean, by the way, we should talk to you about that. It's about really knowing what's actually happening in the moment and being able to give the right advice at exactly the right time.
Spot on.
The challenge is that for most real estate agents, and then when we go into our property management or investment management services, the knowledge about like some really basic things like what's equity, negative gearing, positive gearing, what are we doing around neutral gearing, depreciation schedules, what does that look like? How do you actually even work out the return on a property? And then even like understanding about, does a multi-landlord get a different level of service to a landlord? So somebody who owns multiple properties. There's a real lack of explanation about, what it is that we do in the business and how we actually go to help customers. How important is it for a leader to be able to get people to go on the customer journey that they're taking customers through, to actually explain to them what our experiences should look like to make sure that we're delivering a better quality experience and hence potentially even getting a better fee for it?
Yeah, sure. Look, Josh, I don't think it's an easy one because there are lots of different journeys in there, and I think that I don't know any business at this point that would have every customer journey mapped and all their staff trained on what would be required when, right? I don't think we're at that level of sophistication yet. But to make it really simple, if you start from the place of curiosity and say, okay, if with every customer, that we come into contact with, and we just spend the time to understand what their needs are. And if you talk about a landlord for a moment, you mentioned it. You've got a landlord, and do we actually understand why it is in the first place that they actually have an investment property? Like what's the driving factor? What's that giving them in their life? And sure, you can say it's about money and making, but there's often something else sitting behind that. It could be an investment they've made for their child. It could be, it could be something, it could be part of their retirement. It could be, who knows? There's lots of things, but ultimately it's about probably giving them security and safety and helping them build on their dreams. And what are those dreams? Like what? And do they want to buy any more property? Has it gone well for them? Do they want to do more? What are their aspirations and their dreams? Because if you can get clear about what someone's objectives are and what their why is, then you can actually start to help and say, okay, if I'm curious enough to ask those questions, knowing how I can add value will become really apparent. So if I've said to some of our property management staff the other day, I said, just ring your landlord this year and just say, hey, it's 2023, love to have a chat, just wondering what are your real estate needs this year? Just be quiet, listen, and in that moment you've got to understand if they're making decisions around their super, or they want to buy another property. What do they want to do? And it's the same thing with a vendor, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor. Do you mind if I ask what's your real reason here for selling? And have you bought and sold before? And what's your experience been? And what are the things that are important to you that I need to know about? And I think that if as a leader you can instill that level of curiosity to identify what the opportunities are, then it will become apparent. But I think what a lot of agents do is really step up to the market and just start telling and start assuming that they know what the customer wants without actually asking the question. And therefore you're going down the wrong pathway straight away. And then you don't know what club to pull out. Because at least once you play your golf shot, so you can see where the ball has laid, and then you can sort of suss it out and look at the wind direction and where you're at and whatever, and then pull the right club out. Same thing. So you just got to, I think you've got to go into this with curiosity. And therefore focus on then how you can satisfy what a customer's really looking for.
And I think that as an agent, you've got a job to be in the know. At least know a little bit about a lot of things.
Sure.
So then that way you can put it off to the right person, whether or not it's your mortgage broker or solicitor in-house or conveyancer or whatever it is
Enlist
that you do.
other experts, for sure.
And this is an important part, is to start thinking very differently that, okay, great, when something great happens, and you need it right now, because there's an old school saying that any turkey can fly in a hurricane, and now that we're out of the hurricane, how are you planning on flying, right? So you need every single tool, every incentive, everything that's actually available to actually, be in great conversations with sellers and buyers to give them both reasons to buy and sell.
Josh, a perfect example at the moment. I think that a lot of agents have a lot of difficulty explaining how they're going to add value in a digital sense. Sure, we've got realestate.com and domain and all that stuff, but the level of education that people have not gone through, they just think that you can pop something up on your social, and that then all the people that know you, like you, trust you already, so your friends and your family, other agents and so on, they're seeing your postings, but the people who are actually doing something in real estate are not. But most people don't understand this, so the level of education, the evolution that you have to go through as an agent to consistently improve yourself, to understand how things actually work. Do people really know, a lot of agents actually even know how Bitcoin and platforms like that actually work, right? Well, they're quite simple, but they're also quite complicated, and EFTs, and there's things coming into our world that are changing the language that we will use, and the type of clients that we're dealing with who are coming from that level of expertise. That you have to upskill and know what people are talking about. Because God forbid, I'm seeing there are already some places where platforms and people using Bitcoin to transact, right, on these new ways of doing business. But if someone rolled up to you tomorrow and said, can I pay with Ethereum or something, then I think most agents wouldn't know what to say or do. Or they'd say no, but but at the end of the day, there's just, we have to keep evolving to be relevant.
And this is a great thing in your sales meeting, as an example, in your property management meeting. There's maybe a nice little headline called "Need to Know," and make sure that you've actually got the right tools so that you're giving people the understanding of what's actually happening. And don't be afraid to then make sure that you've got a backup visual or QR code that they can have it open for inspections, that they can share with clients, that takes them to that particular resource that explains what the incentives are. So you've got a fully informed sales and property management workforce.